Okay, now we're going to do an example, and for each one of these we're going to evaluate each one of these trigonometric functions using reference angles and what we've learned previously. Okay, so let's start with part A. Okay, now in part A it says we've got theta is 4 pi over 3. So 4 pi over 3 is in the third quadrant. Okay, so the reference angle, again, we want to find the reference angle, so let's do that. So theta prime equals, in this case we're dealing with radians, so it's going to be 4 pi over 3 minus pi. Okay, and that's going to give us what? Well, if we make this 4 pi over 4, or excuse me, 3 pi over 3, we get pi over 3. So the reference angle is pi over 3, or 60 degrees. Okay, but it's in the third quadrant, right? So what sign does cosine have in the third quadrant? Okay, it's going to be negative. Because remember, cosine is what? X over r. Okay, x is negative in the second quadrant. So we know it's going to have a negative sign. R is always positive. So this means that the value, so the reference angle will tell us, well, what? We know, right? Okay, so let's go through it. So we know the cosine of pi over 3, which is 60 degrees, or excuse me, I'm sorry, 60 degrees. Did I say 30 degrees earlier? If I did, that's a mistake. It's 60 degrees. So pi over 3 is 60 degrees. And so we know that cosine of 60 degrees is going to be what? Adjacent over hypotenuse. Which is going to be 1/2, but since it's in the third quadrant, it's negative. Okay, so guess what? Cosine of pi over 3 is equal to negative 1/2. Okay, now let's do this one. Okay, so now this is negative 210 degrees, so we're almost 3/4, so it's bigger than negative. Let me say this the right way. It's less than negative 180 degrees, but it's bigger than negative 270 degrees. So this is going to be in the second quadrant. Okay. The other thing is we could subtract this from 360. Okay, and we'll get 150 degrees, which is the coterminal angle, right? The positive coterminal angle. So that will also tell us it's in the second quadrant. Okay, so first thing we want to recognize is what is the sign of tangent in the second quadrant. Okay, remember it's y over x. And in the second quadrant, y is positive, x is negative, so tangent is going to be negative in the second quadrant. Okay? So now what's the reference angle here? So if it's in the second quadrant, okay, so it's going to be what? So let's do 150, right? So theta prime, 180 minus 150 degrees equals 30 degrees. Okay, so we're dealing with a 30-degree angle. So we know, again, tangent of 30 degrees. Again, think of are right triangles, right? Opposite over adjacent, okay? Think of the unit circle, okay? So it's opposite over adjacent, so it's going to be the smallest side, which is 1, over the second largest side, which is square root of 3, or in other words, square root of 3 over 3. But since tangent is negative, this is going to be negative. So by the way, that's going to be the same value as this one, as we just showed. So this is also going to be negative square root of 3 over 3, which is our answer. And finally, let's do cosecant of 11 pi over 4. Okay, first of all, 11 pi over 4 is bigger than pi, so it's not in the second quadrant. Okay. It's if we do 3 pi over, so if we do 3 pi, okay, so if we do 3 pi over 2, that's the quadrantal angle, 3 pi over 2. Well, 3 pi over 2, well, if we double that, if we make that equivalent to this one, as far as having fourths, what do we get? We get 6 pi over 4. Well, this is bigger than 6 pi over 4. So this is going to be in the fourth quadrant. Oh, hold on a second. I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm thinking. No, this is bigger than 2 pi. Right? So forget what I just said. I was thinking something else. But this is over 2 pi. That's what I want to say, not pi, but it's also over 2 pi. Because it's, if you double this, it becomes the same as what? 8, right? Well, 11 is bigger than 8, so this is, the top is more than double the bottom, so it's bigger than 2 pi, right? And so since it's bigger than 2 pi, we've gone more than one revolution around. Well, if we subtract off 2 pi, right, what do we get? Well, let's do 11 pi over 4 minus 8 pi over 4, which is the same as 2 pi. We get, oops, not pi, this is 11 pi. So what do we get? We get 3 pi over 4. Well, where's 3 pi over 4? Well, pi over 4 is 45 degrees. So that's in the first quadrant. 2 pi over 4 is 90 degrees. That's the same as pi over 2. 3 pi over 4 is what? 135 degrees. And so we're in the second quadrant again. Okay? So this is in the second quadrant. So to find the reference angle, now what we do is we take 180, or excuse me, I'm sorry, pi minus 3 pi over 4. So we take 4 pi over 4, and so we get pi over 4. So our reference angle is going to be 45 degrees. Okay. So again, make sure that that makes sense what I just did. Okay, so now this is cosecant, right? Cosecant is 1 over sine. So where is sine? What sine is sine in the second quadrant? Well, sine, remember, is y over r. So that means cosecant is r over y. And y is positive in the second quadrant. So that means cosecant is also positive, right? So what we have is what? Sine of pi over 4 is equal to what? Well, think about it. So sine of 45 degrees, opposite over adjacent, unit circle. Right, so the sides are the same. So it's going to be what? 1 over the square root of 2, right? So that means cosecant of 11 pi over 4 is the reciprocal of this, so it's going to be square root of 2. And we're done. All right, cool. Next, we'll do a checkpoint.